Well, our first scripture reading today is from the Gospel according to St. Luke. And this is a powerful passage because we oftentimes talk about Jesus, being God on earth, compassion, full of love and grace for all people. And all of those things are true. But in order for us to receive that peace, that grace, that love, in order for justice to come into this world, sometimes things need to be shaken. And that's what Jesus talks about in this passage here when he says, beginning in verse 49, I came to bring fire to the earth, and how I wish it were already kindled. I have a baptism with which to be baptized, and what stress I am under until it is completed. Do you think that I have come to bring peace to the earth? No, I tell you, but rather division. From now on, 5 in one household will be divided, 3 against 2, and 2 against 3. They will be divided. Father against son, and son against father, mother against daughter, and daughter against mother, mother-in-law against her daughter-in-law, and daughter-in-law against mother-in-law. He also said to the crowds, when you see a cloud rising in the west, you immediately say, it is going to rain. And so it happens. And when you see the south wind blowing, you say, there will be scorching heat, and it happens. You hypocrites, you know how to interpret the appearance of earth and sky, but why do you not know how to interpret the present time?
Assalamu alaikum. That is Arabic for peace be upon you. I am happy to be here at Zion Evangelical UCC one more time this year. I am honored by the invitation of Reverend Basil to share with you about my travels to the Middle East. I'm also happy to see so many familiar faces one more time, and I always feel welcomed here, so it is always glad to be back. I bring you greetings from Global Ministries and our co-executives, Jim Mose from the wider church ministries of the United Church of Christ, and Julia Brown Carimo from the Division of Overseas Ministries of the Christian Church Disciples of Christ. And I would also like to thank you all for your support and giving to Global Ministries through our wider church mission and one great hour of sharing. We could not do what we do at Global Ministries without your support and generosity. Global Ministries is having an event. I want to take that opportunity to say that today before I start. This event is happening in Indianapolis. It's called Mission Works. And this event will take place on August 26th through the 28th of this year at the Martin's House on 86th Street. That's on the north side. And the idea is for those attending to find out how to build your congregation's existing passion for mission and to receive tools for sharing God's mission in the world. We have an exciting program, and we would like to see some of you join us in that event, and I can give you some more information about it if you wish at the end of the service. Also, we are still running the Middle East Initiative. It started last year at General Synod and General Assembly, and it's going to be running until the end of December of this year. And I shared a little bit about that my last time I was here too. And maybe the experience, what you will hear today about my experience in the Middle East will compel you to actually learn a little bit more and really join us in the Middle East Initiative as well. We have our website, globalministries.org, full of information about this region, so I encourage you to go and check it out. And I would like to start a little bit with my experience from the Middle East, and I will be showing you some slides, some photos, to take you through our experience there. Almost a year ago, I traveled to Lebanon, Jordan, Israel, and Palestine with a group of disciples women for many parts of the United States and Canada. Every year, Disciples Women and Global Ministries selects a group of women to visit, learn, and share with women from different areas around the world. Last year, it was the area of the Middle East. This year, they're going in October to Ghana and South Africa. And as you can see here, there was a very diverse group. You can see that there is diverse in ethnicity, is diverse in age, geographically as well, as we were coming from many different areas of the U.S. and Canada. And that really helped bring a different perspective, and it helped us have deeper conversations when we were at our meetings and our debriefings. We even had Bere Gil Soto. She is the lady that's kneeling next to me on the photo. And she is an international student at Christian Theological Seminary, and she is from Mexico. And I have to say that having her in the group really opened up a different world for us in terms of her experience from Mexico and the U.S. compared to the struggles that we met in the Middle East between Palestine and Israel. So it gave a lot of good conversations to have her there with us. We visited Beirut in Lebanon. That's where we mainly stayed, in Lebanon, which is the brown area that you see in the map. And after we visited Lebanon, we flew out to Amman, Jordan, the pink area on the bottom half of the map. And from Amman, Jordan, as you can see, Jordan is very big. It's a beautiful country. It's a lot of desert in there. And from Jordan, we crossed by land, by bus, into the West Bank or occupied Palestine, which is the gray area that looks like a kidney inside the yellow area. And that yellow area is the state of Israel. You can see also the Gaza Strip, which is very, very tiny in gray as well, on the coastline of Israel at the bottom of it, very close to Egypt. We did not visit Gaza. Our hotel was in Jerusalem, and Jerusalem is marked right there by a little star, I believe. And which is our hotel was in the Palestinian side of the city of Jerusalem, which is the east side. The west side of the city of Jerusalem is the Israeli side. I like to share the maps every time I talk about the Middle East, because I want to give you a perspective of the Palestinian land that was there for millennia. And as you can see, the Palestinian land is the green area that you see on the first map, to give you an idea. That was before the United Nations partition, and how it progressed after the Nakba, or the catastrophe, in which Palestinians were displaced and forced into Gaza and the West Bank, and some in Lebanon. And to also show you how it looks after the Six-Day War, in which the state of Israel occupied the West Bank and Gaza. These two areas, were the gray areas I showed you before, have remained under military occupation for almost 50 years. Today, the last map, it says over there 2005. It's been 11 years from that last map. It looks a lot less green than what is showing there, because the state of Israel continues to build settlements in occupied Palestine, taking farmland, access to water, and a lot of resources. So you will see today that green area is a lot less than what is in there. What I just described kind of gives you an idea of the context in which our group found itself in the Middle East, all of us for the first time. We learned about the social, political, and religious context in the area. We learned that there are Palestinian Christians and are Palestinian Muslims, and how both are impacted by occupation. We also learn how they live, and they have lived in mostly a culture of tolerance and collaboration with each other. They are neighbors, they go to school together, they go to work together, and they worship side by side. There are many churches right next to mosques, and people seem to get along pretty well. Something that we were very surprised to see. The monument that you see is shaped is in the shape of a key and of a door, and that you see on this slide here. And this was taken in Jericho. I took this photo purposely because I wanted to show you the key, because the key is very important for Palestinians. The key represents hope for Palestinians to one day return to their homes. So many people for generations have held on to their keys, even in the Palestinian camps that we visited in Lebanon, in hopes to go back to their homes, and they have held on them for generations now. A lot of them have died since then, but their family members and the relative that live on, they continue to hold this key as a sign of hope. We also learn about the religious landscape and the complexities of the region between Jews, Muslims, and Christians. You may recognize the Wailing Wall right there, far right, at the old city of Jerusalem, where Israeli Jews and actually Jews from around the world travel to pray, including tourists and other people. This was in the male section. I was on the women's section. It's divided by a wall, and so I climbed up to see what was happening on the male section. So that was my curiosity right there. Because I did that, then you have this photo right here. It was a very unstable time when we were there in Israel and Palestine. While we were there were a lot of demonstrations, strikes. There were a lot of deaths of Palestinian youths. They had funerals for them, and there were a lot more demonstrations following their deaths, because according to their traditions, the body has to be processed for burial in the first 24 hours of their death, and the government would keep those bodies and not return them to the family in proper fashion for them to do this process. So there were a lot of demonstrations against that kind of treatment. The group learned about several women's literacy, crafts, and food production projects in all the areas that we visited. It was a woman-to-woman experience, so we visited a lot of women's projects. These are all projects from our partnering organizations in the Middle East. We had opportunities to dialogue about the role of women in the area and the many aspects of society, including religion. In the far left, we have a group of women that were learning how to read, and they were celebrating one of the women that have completed the course, and she was happy and saying that she was blind and now she could see and she could read the Quran for the first time. So it was a very nice time of celebration, and we were able to be with them at this joyful time. This one slide shows a food production project that we visited, and they have a little store for the community where they sell the food that they produce, and it is very popular. They prepared the most delicious lunch for us, and when I say that, that's an understatement. I went for seconds and thirds, okay? This was delicious food, and I can see now how this store is very popular in the community. And it tastes like homemade. That's why it's so popular. People like to go there and buy, because it's kind of like having your grandma make the food. So it was really delicious. One of the highlights of our experience. As you can see, there's some nice and delicious goodies over there. And I wish I brought back more of that, but my suitcase was too big with everything that I was bringing. So, but it allows women from this program to provide for their families, because a lot of men are killed in violence. A lot of men can't find work, and a lot of men their land have been taken from them. So there's a lot of need for women to really step up and provide for their families. So that's what these women are doing here. This is also in Jericho. We also learned from Palestinian, Syrian, and Iraqi refugees in Lebanon and Jordan. Lebanon has doubled their population since the Nakba of 1948 with Palestinian refugees. However, Lebanon does not have a path to citizenship, which means that there are generations of Palestinians without identification or documentation, and they stayed in a status of refugee all their lives, and their kids and their kids after that. So we have generations that cannot have access to a lot of the services provided in the society, like education, healthcare, etc. Our delegation had very hard conversations as well, especially with Syrian and Iraqi refugees in Jordan. You can see a group there on the left, top left. And they can become Jordanian citizens. Jordan has a path to citizenship. However, they face a lot of discrimination in the community. They can't find employment, and when they do, they are offered less money than a Jordanian person would work for. So they have to settle for jobs that would pay them very little, or find no jobs at all. And these are people that are professionals. We met some people in the group, including women. There were doctors, teachers, engineers, pharmacists. So these are people that want to work, but because of their status, they are discriminated against. One of them, we had an experience in which we were divided in two groups, because there were a lot of them. So the men were in one group, and the women were in another group. And so our group, which was all women, we had to be divided between the men's group and the women's group. And I was in the men's group, and I'm thinking, oh, well, this is not going to go that well. Men are not going to talk much. This is going to be a very, quiet conversation. And so I really wanted to be in the women's group, where I knew that they were going to talk a lot. So it turned out that it was the other way around. I was not aware of cultural differences in which the men actually do their talking. And so we could not stop them. I mean, they were talking about their experience. We had to actually try to tell people to take turns, because they all wanted to talk at the same time. And then I later learned that the women actually had, the women from our group had to actually work for the women of the Jordan to really talk, because they didn't want to, or it was hard for them to talk. So it was a great experience, but a very difficult one. This is what one of the refugees asked our group as he was looking us eye to eye. He said, "What do you fear in the U.S.? Why do you not want us there? We are educated, hardworking, and only want peace, safety, and decent employment to provide for our families." After hearing that, and after being questioned by somebody looking at you in the eye, how do you answer that? What do you say? So it was a beautiful moment, but a very hard one. Because how could you speak for your country? Where do you begin? But I'm glad that he asked us those questions, because it really shook us to our core. These faces I will never forget. It was one of the hardest conversations we all had in our group. The photo that shows a post, maybe that's not it. This one right here. Across the street was from across the street from our hotel. Is right there, and this is where the night before a 19-year-old Palestinian was shot by an Israeli soldier at 4 o'clock in the morning. It was our first night in Jerusalem. I heard gunshots at 4 o'clock that woke me up, and I'm thinking, well, maybe that's a celebration. I wanted to believe that. And later, after I heard an ambulance, I knew immediately that something had happened. So I got some courage and looked outside the window, even though I felt a little bit unsafe. And that's where I saw the body laying there. And it was a terrifying experience for us, but one that really opened up our eyes to the realities of the region. And I want to highlight also the poster there for World Week of Peace. It says that the wall will fall, a very powerful statement, and has an olive tree growing and breaking the wall. I just wanted to let you know how beautiful that was, and that I found that poster at the YMCA in Shepherd's Field in Bethlehem. And lastly, this one, there you go. We had to face and challenge a lot of stereotypes and assumptions that we had from the area. This is a work that we had to do ourselves. Believe me, we had many assumptions and stereotypes that were challenged where we were there. The more we learned and visited, the more we realized how little we know. How little we know about the area. And really how one-sided and biased the information that we receive is in this part of the world. Sometimes after coming back, I hear the news and I say, well, but that's not at all true, because there's another side of that you're not telling, but our media just brings you just one side of the story, and there's so much more. That's why I invite you to look for more information, to be informed, because there's so much more that we have to learn, and we are given so little to really make an informed decision about how we go about our lives, and that we really need to look for more. So I challenge you on that. One of the things that was surprising to me is that, in my understanding, the state of Israel is in a collective state of fear. Fear in part as a consequence of the trauma that they went through in the Holocaust. But the problem is that fear of protecting themselves has produced the militarization of Israel and then the occupation of the Palestinians. So in a way, the oppressed people became the oppressors. And in their quest for safety and a land to call their home and the right to return to that land, they have displaced and corralled people, erecting walls and increasing their need to protect themselves by any means. And I'm talking about Israel. I'm not talking about the U.S. now. Any similarities is just a coincidence, right? We hear a lot about fear and walls these days, so I just wanted to throw it out there. As a group, we were challenged by the Palestinian hospitality wherever we went. Hospitality is a cultural trait, and they will share whatever little they have with us, even with us coming from a country where they are not welcomed. It was very humbling, to say the least. We were very surprised by the wisdom and strength of the women in the Middle East. Women that faced soldiers every day on their way to work at checkpoints, or even at their houses when the soldiers knock at their doors looking to take the children away because they have been throwing rocks at soldiers that threatened them with machine guns. We were told, tell our stories over and over. Please tell our stories, including when we were at a school where children were playing in the background, "We shall overcome," in perfect English. And Israeli women really surprised us by standing up too, daring to denounce injustices and demanding reparation for Palestinians. So there's Israeli women also taking a stand for injustice. We were shocked and then shaken by their hope. And I don't know if we know what hope is, because hope took a different meaning while I was there. It's a hope that makes them hang on to their keys to their homes that many have been demolished or no longer exist. A hope that makes them wake up every morning with a smile on their faces and looking forward to the day in which they can have some of their land back, feel safe, and live in peace. This trip to the Middle East was one of the most difficult things I have ever faced and have had to process. I am still working and processing many things that we experienced and that will last for a while. It was definitely a life-changing experience for me. And most of it, however, it has given me some curiosity. I recently visited a mosque in Plainfield that was vandalized recently. I don't know if you heard about that. And they held a very beautiful service, an open house. And I was able to visit. I got in there with my husband and we visited and we learned. It was a beautiful experience. And I find myself too greeting and talking to people on the streets that look Middle Eastern, and sometimes I'm surprised because they're not Middle Eastern. They look just like me and they're Latino. But I'm there talking to people. So it has made me more curious and wanting to reach out to people more. And also try a lot of Middle Eastern food, which is delicious. If you haven't, we have wonderful restaurants in the area here in Indianapolis. I can give you some names if you're interested too. But I have discovered through this trip and wherever I go that our commonalities as human beings are so much more than what our differences really are. And so this morning, I ask you to pray for this area, pray for the Middle East, and for a spirit of justice and for a spirit of peace as political leaders discuss, debate, and negotiate the future of these lands, and as Israelis and Palestinians continue to live very apprehensive of each other. Please pray for the churches in these lands, especially as the Christian population diminishes, and for our partners in mission and the many congregations who speak about the situation from their deep faith. Today, more than ever, as people of faith, we must have hope for a better nation and a better world. We must not let fear lead our actions, but let our commitment to peace and justice move us to make a difference. I will leave you today with some of the messages that were entrusted to us by the people that we met in the Middle East to bring back with us home. Build understanding, not walls. And I will repeat that again. Build understanding, not walls. Justice is not an option. It is an imperative. We must educate for liberation. We must educate for peace and justice. And together we can make a difference. Shukran. Thank you.